Hello, CTBC family. Congratulations for 30 years. My name is Elliott. I'm 25 years old, and this is a bit about my testimony so then you can get to know me better. Most of you guys, especially in the Chinese congregation, might be confused. You guys might not know me that well. That was actually one of the prime reasons why I wanted to do my testimony. Being at this church for only about 3 years, I know most people don't know my complete story, whether or not I even came from a Christian family or grew up Christian or just came. And I thought this would be a good opportunity to get you guys to know me and for you guys to be able to see what God has done for my life. I want to start out by saying when I was born, I actually was born with a lung problem. I came out of my mom, couldn't cry, and I actually had to have a giant iron lung for, I think, a day or two. And I think during that time, my parents and all their friends were just praying so much for me. And the problem with that is they didn't know if my lungs could start working. So right when I was born, my lungs didn't work and I had the possibility of dying. But obviously by the grace of God, you see me here today because right before they were trying to do a surgery on me or whatnot, that's when my lung just started to work the day before, a couple hours before the surgery. So even just knowing that is pretty insane that the moment I was born, God was already telling me that he wasn't done with me. You know, I didn't have to be like David's kid and die at such an early age. I was able to be my age I am now today and do so much more from God's mercy. So before I start my testimony, I want to talk a bit about me just coming to CTBC and to kind of give you guys like a overall story of how for me it took me almost 10 churches. It took me 9 churches, not even including ones that I went to once or twice, to be able to find this church and find this family that I love to see every week. And I think for me it's been such a journey that it really makes me appreciate more what I have now. It makes me so much more excited to be able to share my testimony for all of you guys, to see your smiles every week, to know that I can come to church and make a difference. Biggest thing for me growing up, even though I was part of a Christian household, mom, dad, sister, they were Christians, is I really do thank my parents each and every day. Even though they're not perfect, far from it, they, especially my dad, took the time to read the Bible with me growing up. And I remember a park we used to go to quite a bit near Fraser and 33rd, just on the swings, and me and my dad would go through the Bible. I remember a lot of it was 1 Corinthians. It was just maybe 7, 8, verses every week, but it was enough for me to read the Bible and to know how to read the Bible on my own, which I think really helped with my decision to follow Christ, that it wasn't for my parents, that I didn't come to church every week just because they forced me, or that it was like nice to have a free meal afterwards or something. Yeah, just going back, we left that church when I was 12 years old. It was my parents' choice, and it wasn't my choice to make, and it really did throw off that tight-knit kind of feeling at my old church because it was so small. And from that, I ended up moving to Willingdon, stayed there for quite a while, from 12 all the way to 17 years old. During that time, that's when I realized that even with everything happening in life, God himself was too easy for me to find. Having parents that are Christian, it makes it easy for you to take it for granted, to have a ride to church, to have people to wake you up on Sundays. And that's actually one of the reasons why I decided to go to the University of Victoria for a couple of years. I wanted to live on my own and be able to get a relationship with God myself. Being after 2 years in school, something really big happened in my family that really threw my life apart. I had to come back, take care of my mom for a month, skipping school, and that actually caused my GPA to dip pretty significantly, missing classes. And even when I went back, I didn't have the motivation. All I could think of is what was happening at home every time I was just on my own, even just thinking. And that's when my grades just dropped, and I ended up missing out on the core business program in the 3rd year by 2%. And that really derailed my life at that point, because I was thinking how pretty much everything I've done to that point was for God. You know, even choosing my school, everything, and just to have my life fall apart like that it really threw me away. And that was the darkest time of my life, where just everything fell apart. Every friend that I was in the program with would move on. I would be the only one stuck behind. And I just went very, very far away from God, further than I've ever been. And because of that, I just hated God. I just felt like he wasn't faithful. and I remember just thinking, like, what's the point? I didn't feel his love, I didn't feel his grace, I didn't feel his mercy, his passion. And all I could think of at that time was, should I just hop online and find a girlfriend? I was thinking to myself, maybe if I find a girlfriend, she'll give me that love that I was looking for, that I thought God would give me. And it didn't matter to me if it was Christian. I was thinking whether or not it'd be Christian, non-Christian. I was saying, I'm gonna forsake my values just to make myself feel better. But as low as I was, I still never got to that point, because I knew what it would do for me. It was at that spiritual low where I knew me getting into a relationship with a non-Christian would be the absolute turning point for me. It would absolutely throw me out of my way. So instead of going for it, I just prayed for God at the time to provide me with a girlfriend. And obviously I didn't get one for a year. God really made me wait. And then coming back to Vancouver, that's when one of my close high school friends, Florence, she actually came to Christ. God ended up putting us together. And at the time, I was just coming back from a spiritual low. And I also realized I knew so little about the Bible. And even now looking back at it, just 4 years ago, compared to what I am now, I realize when you really seek out to learn more about God, it's crazy what even 2-3 years can do for you. Because I remember a really specific thing when she first became Christian. She actually asked me, did Jesus have a brother? And I remember answering, no, I don't think Jesus has a brother. Why would he have a brother? Not knowing it was James at the time. And even to this day, I'm still so ashamed of myself as a person who's believed in God at that point for 20 years, basically, that I still didn't know such a simple thing. And because of that, she ended up growing in her faith, or just knowledge of God so much more. Within like 3 months, she already knew more than me. And at VCEFC, after a while, we're talking to the pastor, just even about our relationship and about us being, whether or not we were yoked or not. And I remember telling him that, don't worry, her fire is only temporary. It's gonna fade away. That, something like this doesn't last. People, like all the Christians I've seen in my life, people I grew up with, either left the church or just live a life basically like a non-Christian. That ended up kind of sticking with me and made me do that as well. And looking back, I remember when I did end up leaving that church, because that's when my fire grew, but the people around me weren't willing to kind of act on it. And when I left, I remember my pastor even came back to me and said, Elliott, I remember like a year ago, you were saying how every Christian is going to lose their fire and just wait it out. And he's saying, no, instead of that happening, it was actually you. You're the one who grew in fire. And seeing that in my life, it was so, it really made me see what God's plan for me was. As much as the hardships in Victoria was, it was because of that allowed me to see God's glory and what he's capable of and how I can feel that joy. And that's why moving from that church, we again tried to go to another King James church. I think it's on Victoria and Kingsway. Again, that didn't work out. And funny enough, that's when my girlfriend at the time found this church, CTBC, not through the traditional reasons. She specifically looked for a King James only, fundamentalist, independent Baptist church. So I remember coming here, and even the first day I ever came, I saw Dickens and he asked me why I came, and I told him that. He was shocked. And even now, every single person I tell that to, they're so shocked, because that's such a specific reason to find a church. But I'm so glad that God allowed me to be able to find this church, because that whole journey of all the downs and lows in my life really culminated to me finding my family and finding so much more in this church. And I remember one of the times when I came out to paint the church, really specifically, it was Eric Vo that just suddenly, right beside the staircase in the sanctuary, asked me, "How's your spiritual walk? What is it like?" And I don't know why, but that still stumped me to this day, because I couldn't think of, besides maybe a pastor or a pastor's like son, someone serving in ministry, not anyone else has ever asked me that, at least in the last 5 years with how many churches I've gone to. And it just struck me, because it made me think, why don't we ask each other that? Why are we so quiet about it? Because as a church, there's only one thing that really is keeping us together, but that one thing is so powerful. You know, having each and every one of us having a relationship with God is what binds us together. If you see people who love anime, people who love gaming, people who love cars, people who like Harley motorcycle riders, they all become such good friends, in whether they're an accountant, whether they do finance, tech, anything, because they have one interest, one thing they absolutely love with all their heart, and that's enough for them to love each other and to hang out with each other. And I thought, why can't we have that? So when I was asked that question, it really just hit me. That's what we need in our congregation. We don't need to do more outside activities. We don't need to make our grass look nicer. We don't need to make our building look nicer. We need to have each and every person in the congregation to want a relationship with God, to seek out a relationship with God, because once we have that, then we can help each other out and bond that way, because that'll help us look forward to seeing each other every week, to know each other's spiritual walks, to know how we're doing. Just seeing how we are now and how everyone has grown spiritually, it's such a beautiful thing to see, and it makes me so excited to see everyone on Thursday, to see everyone on Sunday, because it doesn't feel like we're that church where we just show up and ask each other, what do we do as a living? What food did you eat this week? We can go to each other on Thursdays, and we pray for each other so much that if you just ask me a random person's prayer, I can tell you their exact prayer request because of how close we are to each other now. And it's such a beautiful thing that we can do that. And I think that's amazing as a church that we have that opportunity. And for now, being able to help our church with the upgrading of the equipment and everything, I'm so glad that we managed to find it. And I'm so excited to see us go more than 30 years, 40, 50, 60, 70, to go to the next generation. And especially for the Chinese congregation, I haven't had a chance to talk to you guys. I feel like I only know most of your names because I did the worship videos during Zoom for you guys. So if you have the opportunity, come up, say hi, get to know each other, because we shouldn't feel like we're separated as a church, just Chinese and English service. We all serve the same God, and we all love God. And I think no matter our age, language differences, we should really feel more like a family, and that each and every one of us can know each other that well that we will know every single person's prayer request without even the need to look at a notebook or anything like that. Thanks for listening to my testimony, and I hope we'll get to know each other more in the future. Bye-bye.